On this week's episode, should the industry follow the Trolls World Tour? The Trolls World Tour. Why Netflix is more valuable than Disney? And are we excited for a return to Dune? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, whether it's the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, or Game Source. We cannot thank you enough for listening to everything that we've got putting out there. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He's our own world touring troll for Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com, his awesome podcast, Topicocalypse, and his great book entitled Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Hey, yeah, world touring, but hopefully not as annoying as Trolls.
Well, there's some kind of mixed news when it concerns the Trolls World Tour. Some of it good, but what kind of sign does it mean for Hollywood down the road? So we'll talk about that here in a minute. Plus, we've got a lot to talk about when it concerns a new Dune movie, because there's been some on-set pics that have been shown off recently. Are we excited for Dune that's coming out later this year? Plus, also as well, we're going to mention a live-action Robin Hood, and then talk about some shows that maybe you should go out of your way to see right now that are just on either FX, and Netflix. And of course, we've got Jessica Boggs coming up here in a little bit as well. She and I are going to be talking at length about the Wrestling Wars as part of her part one of her April TV update. She's going to be talking about the Wrestling Wars and how it's a little bit lackluster at this point in time. But first, my friend, it is Trolls World Tour. And normally we wouldn't start off an episode with something like that because it's basically a kids' fair movie. It's something that was designed when it was going to be released to the box office, which was supposed to be released to the box office this past weekend. It was supposed to probably going to do in second place or maybe third, because you had Mulan coming out a couple weeks ago that was originally scheduled, but unfortunately it got moved because of coronavirus. Then it was going to come out on the same weekend that James Bond, or thereabouts the same weekend as James Bond, which also got moved because of coronavirus. And then it was going to come out a couple weeks before Black Widow, unfortunately, which also got moved. It was going to come out a couple weeks later. So you had all these movies surrounding it. So it didn't have the highest of expectations, but it was still going to generate, I would say, probably about $100 to $150 million at the box office. But the good news is that it actually, according to, if you believe Universal and all that, it has the highest digital sales start ever. The highest digital debut ever for just going straight to digital, getting all the money, things of that nature. So it's a good sign for the digital market and what Josh has been saying about people staying home, wanting to check it out. But it isn't going to recoup all the money that's behind that you would normally get, or that a movie like that would normally get. But I want to ask you this, Josh. This is going to start leading a trend into movies that probably weren't going to do so well at the box office, that are going to go ahead and maybe find some life at the home and digital, at home digital. But in the case of Trolls World Tour, that would have generated at least enough money to maybe pay for itself before you go ahead and go on home digital. Is this something that you're going to see more of? Is where all these first line movies going ahead and moving to digital? I know My Spy and there's a couple others that are already on the way. But is this something that's going to be there if you have a movie that's on the fringe of making money or not? Just going ahead and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go straight to digital.
I don't know about that. I think that Trolls World Tour is unique in the fact that, think about this, we've had all these kids home from school, right? And we've had parents have been working from home trying to find things to entertain their kids. Trolls World Tour comes out. It is the first one, was one of the most annoying movies I've ever seen, but at the same time, like, kids loved it. So you had Troll, we're in this time period where parents are looking for things to entertain their kids, and Trolls World Tour comes out, and that might be why so many people are consuming this film, as opposed to if it were in theater, I don't think people would go. I don't think it would be getting as much views as it is now. People are just looking for things to keep their kids entertained. And if you go to Target and Walmart too, though, like, they're doing a great job of marketing this film. But it just goes back to show you, people. This is going to be COVID-19 has changed the landscape of how movies are consumed. People are going to be watching these. I think people are going to be wanting to watch movies from home now, and if a movie like Trolls can work, as far as the budget goes, if it's economically friendly for a studio like DreamWorks to release Trolls straight to DVD, straight to digital, like, it seems like a good idea to me, because we, like I said before, like, the landscape of film is changing, and COVID-19 is kind of a good time for people to sit back and look at their marketing strategies.
It is. I know, like you said, even with this record success for Trolls World Tour, it can't make up for, like I said, 100, 150, maybe even if it was if it was a success, $200 million worldwide at the box office where it would generate. It's not going to make up for all that loss, because then you also got to consider it was going to come to home digital at some point in time, anyways. Now, mind you, would not have made that kind of money when it went to home digital, but overall, you're still got a loss there, because you've got more than one person. When you buy at home digital, you got more than one person that's sitting around the couch probably watching it. Or you got the kids watching it, maybe the parents watching it, and all that. And instead of going out to the theaters, you're going to lose that income by buying all those tickets separately. So there is going to be a loss of income. But for something like Trolls World Tour, which had some type of anticipation for it by the kids, this bodes well for those type of films that are on the fringe. I know we talked about before in the past My Spy, which kept getting moved from release date to release date to release date for various reasons. Then coronavirus kicked in, and now the studio has said, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and release it straight to digital. There's also another one coming up called The Lovebirds. That's also that's available for digital purchase now. That was something that is, that's something that probably would have bombed had it been kept in theaters. I think the first movie of the kind before the coronavirus hit that made the smart move was the Cloverfield Paradox. If you remember, like 2 years ago at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, it was advertised like right there. You could get this movie right now, and it was a massive hit for Netflix at the time. This was a movie that was probably going to bomb at the box office, so that was a smart move. I don't think you're going to find the same success each and every time as Trolls World Tour. I think there's some caveats. It's a kids movie. It's the type of movie that maybe you could sit the kids around and find them something. It gives them something new to do. I think there's some caveats as far as what movies you go ahead straight to digital on, but at least this gives a better dynamic on what type of money you can generate. Even though you're not going to generate as much as if you put in the theaters originally, this could still, at least for some of those failing movies that would have bombed at the box office, could be some way now in a new environment to recoup some of those losses.
Sorry, I was trying to find where my button went. No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But at the same time, I think kids' movies are a safer bet to put straight to digital, straight to what are the Amazon Prime or Fandango, watch on demand thing. You're still charging $20, because think about this, like a family who goes to the movies, right? And you're saying they're missing out on box office revenue, but who's to say for sure, right? Because a lot of people, you have three or four kids, you go to the movies theaters, and you're paying about $12 to $15 a ticket for each of them. But whereas a family can sit at home, an entire family can sit at home and watch this movie for $20. So you can buy this movie for about the cost of 2 tickets. So I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to see the statistics on this, but I also, like I said, I feel like it's a safer thing to do with kids' movies, especially in this time, because people are at home, right? Parents are working. Parents are looking for ways to keep their kids entertained. Let me ask you this: do you think that if we were not in a time of COVID-19 and they put this movie out straight to digital, do you think that it would be doing as well as it is?
Well, like I said, it would have come out at a time where, no, it would have come out at a time where you had Mulan already in the theaters. You would have had James Bond competing against, but then it's counter programming to James Bond. But you still would have had Mulan, and then Black Widow a couple of weeks later after it comes on the market. So it obviously was not going to be number one at the box office in many locations around the world. But still, if as a kids movie at this time, it would have generated again, you're probably talking between $150 million worldwide. That even if it's not meeting its success or the type of success that they wanted to meet, still would have generated that type of income, and that income is lost. So you got that income lost, and yes, you're putting it right to digital, and you're making up some of those losses because you're having an audience that is seeing this new and fresh. But still, I don't think it's going to make up for the fact that at the end of the day, when they go ahead and project and they sit down, how much did we really lose by not having in theaters? I think they're going to go ahead and say maybe the cost difference will probably be different. Probably be a lot closer, but I still think they're going to lose about $50 to $70 million from what they would have had they released in the theaters.
Okay, then on that note, do you think that they are going to try to make movies more budget friendly for the time being? If this is the wave of the future, if films are going to be released on digital, do you think they're going to try to make these movies more budget friendly in
I
order
agree.
to accommodate this market?
In order to what?
No, I said, do you think that they're going to try to make movies more budget friendly to accommodate this kind of market moving?
I would say that is yes. I mean, at least we know what the landscape might be like if for the next year, 2 years until the end of 2021, possibly even longer. So if that's the case, theaters will probably not have the same kind of attendance over the course of the next 2 years, at least maybe until the summer of 2022. That could be that late before people will feel confident enough in going to the theaters in mass. And if that's the case, you're going to have to downscale your projects. You're going to have to stop going ahead and having those big budget movies for the most part that could be adversely affected. You might still have the top end Marvel movies and DC movies and those type of, even the Martin Scorsese rumored $200 million movie he's trying to put around either to the films, or even Netflix is still trying to go ahead and maybe, interested in what he has to offer with that, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro and all that. But it's those midline movies, it's those lower budget movies. The lower budget movies will still have a place, but it's those midline movies, those 30 to 50 to $70 million movies like Uncharted that we love to point to, that possibly could be affected by what's going on, because studios will now say, are we really sure we want to invest that type of money on something that has no guarantee on making it big at the box office, that has no assurance that it's going to draw people in? Are we just going to go ahead with that type of project? Are we going to scale it back, or are we going to even do it at all? Because I think you're going to have a situation like we do with video games, where the midline, the double A producing companies, they no longer really exist. We just either have the triple A games or we have the indie games that are coming out at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a market for everything, every type of media that can be consumed. I mean, even you go back to look at Trolls, right? They have the Trolls, the stories that have gone straight to DVD or straight to Netflix. Same thing with How to Train Your Dragon. So I feel like if any studio that makes kids films is set up for something like that, it is DreamWorks, because outside of How to Train Your Dragons and Trolls, like they've done stuff with Shrek, they've done things with so I don't remember a lot of their other animated films off the top of my head. But if anyone can make a budget conscious film that is going to be straight to DVD release that can be profited on, it is DreamWorks, I feel.
So we'll see what happens as we go along. Like Josh has said, the industry, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be changing and changing dramatically. A lot of these projects, which are talked about and being discussed, and possibly in some form or fashion was underway before the coronavirus, may not be after the coronavirus because these studios either can't afford it or don't think it'll be worth the risk of a, how should I say, a studio, an audience that may not be as willing to go to the theaters for some time. So we're going to have to evaluate that as we go along. There's going to be a lot of discussion on which movies will and will not make the big screen. But one thing's for certain, the digital market is getting a lot bigger and bigger, and it's becoming a lot more prevalent, as is the case with Trolls World Tour. So I think in the future, if more semi-big or even big projects come directly to the digital screens, then I think we're going to see a lot more money produced there, which could be at the detriment of anyone wanting to go to the theaters. What are your thoughts out there on the success of Trolls World Tour? Was it a good thing that it did so well on digital, or is it a sign of things to come in the current climate of the coronavirus? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, my friend, Dune, we've seen some pictures now. We've seen some stuff that's been released, some more information. A director that you and I are very familiar with, Denis Villeneuve, whose last project or last major project, Blade Runner 2049, Blade Runner 2049, sits very highly on our list. And I think our longtime listeners know how much affection we have for it, since we seem to get a Blade Runner 2049 reference on so many shows. At least once a month it seems to be happening at that point in time. So it has left an indelible mark. And in fact, in our top 10 movie list, which I just accumulated so many, and if you still want to turn in a top 10 list, you're more than welcome to at popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. But you saw that the Blade Runner 2049 is so high up on your list. It's on my list, and it's actually on a few other lists as well. So I want to hear your thoughts. Are you excited for Denis Villeneuve delving into the world of Dune? It's not been something that's gone and been done well on a big screen or even on a TV screen. The TV miniseries was bleh. The movie, as you know, in the early 80s was very much panned at that point in time. So I want to hear your thoughts on, is it now a good time to go ahead and go back into the world of Dune?
So I don't really have a big history with Dune. I know we've talked about this before. Like you're a big fan, and I said I've always been interested in it. I've always been interested in like reading the books and the comic books, because the world is very intriguing to me, and it's something I've never had the time to dive into. But as I'm seeing these images leak out, it does look very much like something I would enjoy. It does. I love the work that Denis Villeneuve does. As you said, I am a huge Blade Runner 2049 fan, and I do love the fact that he has said he would go back to revisit that world. But I really, I'm seeing the images. I'm seeing it's what's his name from Star Wars? Oscar. What's the
Oscar
name I'm thinking
Isaac,
of?
Jason Momoa. I mean, there is a cavalcade of stars. That Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya. There's just so many great stars that are currently attached to the picture.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at these images of these of them up on the screen, and if there's one thing Denis Villeneuve does really well, it's cinematography. Like he has such a way with like colors. You know, he has a way with colors and the way the camera is set up. Like he is amazing. I'm pretty sure the cinematographer is the guy that did the cinematographer and editor is the same people that did Blade Runner 2049, right?
I'm not sure on that, but it certainly looks like it from just the screenshots. I mean, obviously we haven't seen a trailer yet. Hopefully we will in the near future. But, you know, Roger Deakins is the cinematographer, and I think
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 was his first Oscar after so many years in the industry being lauded and having so many great films already under his belt, and finally getting that just due. And I think since then he's gotten another one, I think for 1917, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been something that I think is well deserved by him. And we're now seeing his work being finally given the appreciation it deserves. It deserves. And a movie like Dune, that could be just a lot of eye candy for us at that point in time when it comes out later this year, or if it comes out later this year.
Isn't that I mean, Dune is something that you would have to experience that in the on the big screen. But isn't it, talking about Roger Deakins though, isn't it crazy how like you can be this master editor, right? You can cut things like a champ. You can have all of your
Oh, the
fade-ins perfect,
cinematographer.
everything, but it really relies the cinematographer, yeah, and it relies, well, not just on the cinematographer, right? It relies heavily also on the director, right? Because you're seeing their vision. They're standing behind the camera, so you have a mixture of these three great things, and then once you are handed, these really really great pieces, you're able to make a better product. So it really goes to show you that like a lot of people say the director, all he does is direct the film. The writer doesn't get any credit, cinematographer doesn't get any credit, but it relies so heavily on those big pieces for a film like that to come together.
Absolutely. It's not just about the shot, it's about how it looks, how is it goes and weaves itself into the movie, plus also as editing. If you have a shot that lingers too long, it takes away the effect. If you have it that is too short, it has no meaning. So you got to have the shots cut in exactly the right way at the right point in time. So it takes a coordinated effort between the editor, between the cinematographer, and the director to go ahead and create those type of experiences that you and I love so much, like in Blade Runner 2049. We mentioned 1917. We mentioned all the great films that Roger Deakins has done because he's been such a great cinematographer in the past. And Denis Villeneuve, I mean, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, he has a few movies under his belt that have been acclaimed as well. So I think the bets are stronger on Dune becoming a hit finally to an audience, because again, around the turn of this century, I think was it USA or Sci-Fi or one of the cable networks tried their hand, along with I think also the BBC and whatnot, at Dune, and it didn't quite work out. I saw parts of it, and I just wasn't impressed. And then you have, like I said, the early 1980s films, which for me, I kind of enjoy. I kind of enjoy in a guilty pleasure type of way. I know it looks bad at times, even from the standards of what 1983, 84 was giving it, because, we saw what was going on with Star Wars and several other films at that time that did have success. Blade Runner, for instance, the original Blade Runner looks so good. Dune, which came out around that time, didn't unfortunately look that good, but it was still campy fun with Patrick Stewart and Sting. I will kill him. I will kill him. I will. Just shouting on that, just arrogant. I love Sting in that film. He was just so over the top, and it was just so funny to watch him.
Did he ever find his desert rose in the dunes?
I don't know. I don't know, but everything, every little thing was magic. Was not so magic in that film. And throwing these puns out there, but he was so over the top in the film, and then you have just so many different elements of the film that was just not done to the level it should have been. But yeah, it's campy fun, and if you want to go ahead and check it out, it's there. You can find it online right now, or you can find it out there in the streaming markets. But yeah, that movie is probably going to become more prevalent as we get closer to the release of Dune later this year, or at least it's scheduled to, anyways. But I want to ask you, like you said you're not as familiar with the world of Dune, and obviously you would start off with the book itself. I mean, is this something that you would get yourself into? I mean, at least you're familiar enough to know that, hey, this is something that might work out. This is something that might look good given the kind of quality that's behind it at this point in time.
I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the movie Arrival, as we've discussed several times, but it was a very beautiful looking film. So if Denis Villeneuve did a live action SpongeBob movie, I would go watch it, despite how much I'm not like a huge fan of SpongeBob these days. So yes, I am excited. It is something I'm going to watch. I don't know if I'll get through all the books by the time the movie comes out, but it is something, it is a film I do want to see. And if it's anything near as, from what I understand, the source material is very complex. So if it's anywhere near as, intriguing as and in depth and philosophical and even theological as Blade Runner is, and the way that he handled the material, then I cannot wait to watch this film.
What about a film that you may not be so eager to see in a live action Robin Hood that's rumored to be coming to Disney Plus at some point in time? That it's going to be in development, that it's going to be made. The Robin Hood character, the Robin Hood movies have been done to death, in my opinion. I think that it should not be the case, but Disney, who is finding so much success with Disney Plus, because when Disney Plus first started, I noticed Robin Hood was trending. The original cartoon animated Robin Hood was trending, I should say. So they saw the success of that, and they're thinking, okay, let's make a live action version, because we'll make a live action version of all of our animated projects. So I ask you, my friend, are you excited for another rendition of Robin Hood?
Not so much. Like, this is one I really wish they wouldn't touch. Robin Hood is has been a franchise, not a franchise, but like a property that's kind of been beaten to death over the years. The last like really good iteration I saw of Robin Hood was Ridley Scott's Robin Hood with Russell Crowe. But Disney is remaking its classic 1973 Robin Hood. That's the basis of this conversation, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about like the anthropomorphic characters. I don't know how I feel about having a fox playing Robin Hood. It was classic in 1973. It was classic when I was a kid, even. Like, I love this movie, but it's one of those things where I feel like it's in the same vein as Dumbo. It's just Disney making something just because they can make it, and they're hoping to cash in on nostalgia. But here's the thing: like, this is, I'm sure some adults will go see it, but this is not something that a lot of kids these days are really familiar with. I feel like, it's not like a Frozen, it's not Brave, it's not Toy Story even. It's a film that adults enjoy watching. Adults will probably go see it. Maybe they'll take their kids to see it, but I don't see this being a box office success. Or how are you feeling about it, though? Is it something
Well,
that
it's just
you
going to
think you
Disney
take your
Plus.
daughters to go see?
Well, it's just going to Disney Plus.
Oh, okay, so that's an even bigger question. How can they afford to do that then? I'm sure it's not exactly making a movie like that wouldn't exactly be budget friendly.
Yes, I mean they're going to do it in the realm of what they're doing now with the Marvel movies and the other projects that they're doing, and then also the Mandalorian, and they're going to probably do it in that realm and have those type of budgets. The director is Carlos Lopez Estrada, who last filmed Blind Spotting, I think back a couple of years ago. So he looks like he's taking it on and going to be able to take care of this for Disney Plus. So I think as long as they keep, like we were talking about before, when it concerns all the movies, when you're the focus now being on digital, this is a movie that probably would not be a safe bet at the box office, at the theaters. Will probably not generate that type of money. But if you have a budget friendly type scope for it, if you have those ideals for it, then you can go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to keep it within this framework of cash. maybe it's something that a lot of people, when it finally gets made, and say a year from now, it's something that a lot of people may turn to. Disney Plus has got to start looking to making more original content. You and I have spoken about that before, and that's something that definitely has to work in their favor because they now have a large audience. They now have over 50 million. They just announced it, 50 million subscribers. They have to look at and see this in a context where they have to create a lot of original content. And if they keep this budget friendly, you know it's going to get watched simply because it's on Disney Plus. I didn't say it was a good move. I didn't say it was a move I want to happen. I just know if it's done in a family-friendly type format, which you know it's going to be on Disney Plus, just because it's there, it's going to be watched. I mean, take a look at the stuff that's hitting Netflix. I mean, when you have the Big Show, you have also as well Tiger King, but mainly Tiger King is still thought of in a decent context. But the Big Show, when that hits to the top 5 in Netflix, that just shows that when you throw something out there at this point in time, almost anybody will watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to consider heavily the climate we're in right now, though, too. A lot of people are home from work looking for things to binge, looking for things to keep their attention occupied. Like, I'll be honest, like, there are some movies that I have watched on Netflix, because I was bored, and shows that I would never have even like thought about watching. Tiger King is a great example of that, right? It's something I would have never taken the time to sit down and watch unless I really had nothing else to do. So, and Disney is weird in the fact that, like, I know they had a lot of things they were planning on releasing in theaters that went to Disney Plus, like Stargirl, for example. That was one that people have been talking about for a few years, saying that was going to hit theaters in February, and then they announced Disney Plus, and all of a sudden it became a Disney Plus release. I don't know how good it is. I don't know if people have watched it. I've been curious about it because I taught the book to my sixth graders, but if you look at the opposite side of that coin, though, you have Lady and the Tramp, right? It's based on a beloved property, but it kind of flew under the radar. People didn't really know it existed. And when they finally did watch it, they came back thinking like, oh man, this movie's not that great. So, taking a movie, if they're taking such a classic, there's not going to be an in between for it. It's not going to be something people are going to be like, it was all right. It's either going to be something that is really good or it's just really bad, and no one will ever talk about it again. It'll just get buried in the plethora of things on Disney Plus.
And there's a lot of projects right now on Netflix that can say the same thing. And I think we're going to start seeing that with Disney Plus. I mean, think of it like shovelware on the Wii. You're going to see eventually a lot of shovelware on Disney Plus, like you do already on Netflix. It's going to be there,
well,
and you got to be
Steam, right?
Yeah, like Steam.
It's like Steam, right? You have all these games where people are making dumb things, like the if you want the KFC Colonel dating simulator, like it's just things people make to pass the time.
Exactly, and there's going to be a lot of movies there that just get watched because people are bored. So we're going to see a Disney Plus version or rendition of Robin Hood in the near future. Is this something you'd be interested in, going back into the realm of Robin Hood? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos and at yahoo.com. But also, if you can, please let us know your thoughts on Dune, and would you be excited for a new rendition of Dune, which we are more excited for. That looks like it'll be coming to theaters by the end of this year, at least scheduled as of now. So let us know your thoughts on Dune and Robin Hood at popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it's our good friend Jessica Boggs. She and I are going to sit down and talk a little bit in a part 1 of our April TV update about the lack of wrestling wars. And we'll get to a little bit more in detail about why the wrestling wars at this point in time are a little bit disappointing, coming up right after the break. And then also as well, Josh and I are going to be talking about some shows that are must-see TV right now. And then also going back to Netflix and Disney, why Netflix could be more valuable right now than Disney. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. Want to give a big thank you to Jessica Boggs from the TVRatingsGuide.com. She stopped by and for part one of her April TV update. Stay tuned to the Monday show, the Pop Culture Cosmos, and she'll bring you all the good stuff that comes along with the rest of part two of her April TV update. Cannot thank her enough for taking the time to do so, and also a great conversation on the wrestling wars or lack thereof at this point in time. But before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to ask you this. You said you've been going around Netflix, you've been going around the digital, you've been going around the television as far as checking out some certain things. Have you had a chance to check out Ozark?
Okay, so Ozark is one that has been talked about on the Topicocalypse top shows of the year for the past 2 years, and something that people keep telling me I need to watch. Big Dog and Brett are always going, do you need to watch Ozark? It's not something that I have had time yet to sit down and watch. And when I do, something else pops up that might be more intriguing to me. So it's something I need to have the self-sacrifice to sit down and watch. I have not seen it. I've heard great, absolutely fantastic things about the show. It's got a really, really great cast, and I have, I have plans to watch it. But have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it?
I have had a chance to check it out. I know Brett Allen of the Open Mic podcast. He asked me to go ahead and check it out. It is trending between and toggling between number one and number two, between that and Tiger King right now at Netflix. So it is something that is finally getting its just due. I think in a different climate. Last year, the year before, it was more under the radar. But this is Jason Bateman's project. He's directed, he's not only a star, but he's directed several of the episodes. And it's something that I think a lot of people are now really getting into. So I think it's going to start getting more and more acclaim. It's very gritty. It's very Breaking Bad. To me, it's actually more appealing than Breaking Bad. I think probably because I can, relate to more of his character than maybe Walter White's, because they just go down that dark. They both go down the dark roads. Let's put it that way. They both go down the dark roads into the crime world, whatnot. And I know a lot of people love Breaking Bad. It's got a great reputation. A lot of episodes that I've seen, are really good and cutting edge. But when you watch Ozark, I think that's something that way it's presented, the way it's shown, it even the dark imagery that's shown on so much of the shows in Ozark just represent a type of a darkness that I think rarely gets represented well on any type of medium.
Would you say that? Because just from watching the trailers, I mean, this is how I feel about it, but would you say that it has like a maybe a little bit of like a Justified vibe to it, like the Timothy Oliphant show? Do you think it kind of feels like that?
A little bit, but actually even goes even darker, because this is someone who put himself and his family into a situation that not many families would do, no matter what the type of money that's at stake. And the individuals that they're dealing with are ruthless killers. And this is something where you had, for instance, Breaking Bad. Let's go back to Breaking Bad. I mean, Walter White, he put Israeli only himself into that type of situation for the most part, that he put himself, him and Aaron Paul, because they knew what they were doing. This is where the whole family, including the kids, they know what dad's doing. They know what type of trouble he's getting himself into, and they are experiencing this stuff, as well firsthand on occasion, which is, it borderlines on the shocking, because if they're involving the kids into this type of scenario. But I think that's what makes this show a lot edgier, is the fact that they're willing to go with, a character of Jason Bateman's stature, because Jason Bateman, you don't think he's the type of guy that could lead this type of project or put himself, his character put himself in that type of position of being the money launderer for drug cartels and all that. But yet it works, and it works so well because of the fact that you're seeing it all through his eyes, but not only that, his families as well. And it works so well because it does so many things differently than what I've seen, than anything I've seen before.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, just from what I've seen of the show and the trailers, it looks like it goes far beyond the typical drug cartel story, right? It looks like it has a lot of layers to it, and those are it feels like it is made not just by a good not producer, but good like directors behind the chair, but it also feels like it is very well written, and there's a lot of character development involved. So that's why it's something that I don't want to just watch in passing. I want to sit down and actually get into this show and devote, the time that I need to fully, envelop myself in the story.
And another show that I think you should get into, and a lot of other people should get into, is something that I think a lot of people are familiar with what we like, and that's Taika Waititi. We love his stuff. We love his movies that he's directed in the recent past. Obviously, Thor Ragnarok comes to mind with a lot of people. But one of the movies that he made was a mockumentary in the past called What We Do in the Shadows, which follows a group of vampires in a modern day setting. And it's just really a hilarious movie, and I highly recommend it. But FX in the past couple of years since season 2 has recreated that. I think he's one of the executive producers on it still. And that is What We Do in the Shadows for FX. It's now in season 2. It's getting a lot of acclaim, and the movie itself was hilarious, and this TV show that now has and now is with different actors that are now playing a lot of the roles in there. It's creating a lot of dynamics within the tried and true tropes of the monster genre, but it's playing it in such a way that it still finds it fascinating. And it shows Josh that, yeah, not all the great ideas were just in the movie, that there's a lot of great ideas they can continue to pursue with What We Do in the Shadows. I mean, just having vampires over for your Super Bowl party, to me is a joke in and of itself right there.
So this might be a dumb question. So apparently it is already on TV. I keep on like wondering. I keep reading about the show and
Oh yeah,
wondering. I was wondering when it was finally coming out, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it. So
oh yeah,
I
season
didn't know that it
two.
was out. So that's great news.
Yeah,
I
season
am
two
a
just came out. Season 2 just
Yeah.
came
So
out.
I just saw a news article. Yeah, and I have a lot of friends who are like posting things saying like this is the greatest comedy moment I've seen since The Office. And I'm like, okay, well if it's getting that much praise, like maybe it is something that was really well put together, And I remember from the movie, like I remember laughing really hard at that movie as like that college girl's over and she's saying, "Oh, I'd like to travel one day," and he looks up at the camera and smiles, and then he bites her. But like it is there's a lot of situational comedy that is just the potential for situational comedy in that show seems like it's very high. So I am yes, I do want to watch it. I think that Taika Waititi's great at what he does, and I imagine he would only let this property be turned into a television show if he really trusted the hands behind it. So yes, I do want to watch it. I am excited about it. I might even try starting to watch some of it this weekend. So I'll get back to you on that.
Well, it's funny because one of the characters, and this is not it's in the trailer, so it's already been out there. It's funny because one of the characters has wanted to become a vampire, but now finds out he's related to Van Helsing. So now he's thinking about in the same house killing vampires. So there lies a paradox. Does he want to be a vampire? Does he want to be a vampire hunter? So that paradox is there. There's a lot of crazy scenarios, and again, putting them in modern day settings, like for instance at a Super Bowl party, is just great ideas that they keep on going and flowing into it. And to me, it's something where usually I groan when I see a successful movie being transformed into a digital series, into a TV series, and usually I groan on that. But this is something in its first season, now going into a second season, that I think that the producers Taika Waititi, but any fans of the What We Do in the Shadows movie can be proud of watching, because it is really funny. It's something that is very entertaining, and FX, which goes out of its way to make good shows, and it has a lot of good shows under its belt. It really has done it again with What We Do in the Shadows, and it's really funny to see that Taika Waititi, even though you don't see his impression firsthand, it still has his fingerprints all over it, and you see the success from it.
Yeah, and it's always I imagine too, like as a writer, creator, director, like Taika Waititi probably sits back and is watching what other people are doing with his work and being, fascinated by it, or he's proud of it. Like it would have to have his stamp of approval, I imagine, if he's on the board as like a producer, right? So it would be cool to be in his shoes to kind of see like a different take on what he created. I would love that myself. So this does sound like a really cool project.
It is. I hope you get a chance to check it out this weekend. It is What We Do in the Shadows. It is available now on FX or wherever you can try and find it available on streaming outlets. It is, like I said, in its second season now. It's getting high acclaim. Ozark, that's available on Netflix. It's one of the most popular shows there. You got to check that out because it's really getting really getting high acclaim as well. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on Ozark, hopefully on an upcoming open mic podcast, I get a chance to talk to Brett Allen on it. But again, if you have any thoughts on both Ozark and What We Do in the Shadows, and you want to share your thoughts on either show, just let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. But before we head on out, just wanted to go ahead and make sure let everybody know, if you can, give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We truly appreciate it. It helps get us more out there as far as to knowledgeable fans out there on pop culture and gets us more in the know. Plus, also, if you have a question, just send it to us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. We'll be glad to read it on the air. We're still looking for more top 10 movie lists. So if you got one, send it over. We'd love to hear from you. But if you can, also subscribe to our show subscribe to our show, because there are thousands of listeners just like you that have enjoyed the show, that have done so. So we truly appreciate it. So you can get the latest episodes. There's many Lakers fast breaks, which I've been able to go ahead and put out there on the NBA draft and what's going on with the NBA right now in flux. So several episodes have just dropped on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel. So you want to check that out as well. Inside Sports Fantasy Football had an episode this past weekend, got one coming up in the near future as well. So check all that great stuff going on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel. You'll be glad you did. But before we head on out, my friend, did you catch the news on the stock market that as of right now, because of what's going on with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, which is one and the same, that Netflix, it's been a Netflix and Disney dominated show, but Netflix has a greater value right now just by the smallest of margins over Disney Plus. Just as far as face value, stock value, the whole 9 yards, Disney is losing somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million a day. So right now, those numbers are skewed somewhat. And I think when it gets back to normal in a couple of years, you'll see that dramatically change. But your thoughts when you hear Netflix? Remember the company 10 years ago you were getting DVDs mailed to you from is now ahead in value of Disney.
Well, it makes sense right now, right? Because we kind of talked about this when Disney Plus was announced, right? Disney has all of these big name properties. They have all these big money makers. But what happens when people get tired of those and they want to step outside of Disney made things? And like you said earlier in the show, Netflix has all of these things on there where you can just get lost in it. And whether or not you like certain genres of shows on Netflix, there is something for everybody. So it makes sense that with all of the variation of shows and different and types of things Netflix has to offer, that they would, in this time right now when Disney's not actually making anything new, it makes sense that Netflix would climb ahead in terms of value, because more people are probably wanting to watch Netflix shows right now than Disney, or at least that would be my assumption. Again, I'm not like a marketing commentator or anything, but that's just my guess on why this is happening.
Well, as long as Disney continues to bleed money, it's going to be a rhyme. Obviously, when you're your theme parks are not open, and so many other facets of your business is generating anything. Nobody's going to the theaters, so your Marvel movies and all the other movies that you make are not generating anything, and you had to push them back. So times are tough right now at Disney, and as well as everywhere right now. So times are tough right there. So don't read into the full face value of Netflix being more valuable in the short term over Disney. I still think over time, once it gets back to some semblance of normalcy within our society, that you should see a return to prominence for Disney. The one thing I would say that is in Disney's type of pocket is that they do have 50 million viewers now on Disney Plus. Mind you, that's only less than 1/3 what Netflix has, but they are gaining at a speed faster than what Netflix was growing at. So I think that needs to be kept in mind. And if Disney keeps on putting out original content, that's the key. That's worth it for people to go ahead and justify getting Disney Plus. Then you could see a point in time where Disney is rivaling Netflix on total viewers worldwide, which could be a sign that Disney is coming back and coming back strong.
Yeah, but they're also, like you said, they're not producing anything right now. So that might be why they've slipped behind in the numbers. So it's really, I'll be anxious to see that, when every market, I guess, when the economy reaches equilibrium again, what is all of this going to look like? Are people have new allegiances to streaming services being created during this time, or are these just people hopping around because they're bored?
So we'll definitely see what happens right now. It is a different landscape because of everybody's so focused in on staying at home and viewing everything that's going on as much as they can with broadcast, cable, and also streaming outlets as well. So we're going to go ahead and keep an eye on it, and we'll keep you alerted on our social media at Pop Culture Cosmos, but also right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.